a couple things that have helped me remember scales is finding scales that look like each other. Like A major chords look like E major chords to me.
It's the same shape.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because you want to realize that not everything is unique and not everything is new. You know what I mean? If you're learning the E flat major scale, it's going to look a lot like A flat major scale. There's going to be one note different, and the chord is going to have the same shape. So yeah, you want to relate things to each other, but you also don't want to do that too much because then you start kind of blending everything together in a weird way. So be careful with that. But yes, you want to make, relationships between the different things that you're learning. So that's good. All right, let's start with Dreamchaser, because we were talking about a lot of cool stuff that we were going to do, as far as you were talking about these notes that you really like in the music, and we were talking about how we can bring them out and make them even more obvious.
Yeah.
Well, I don't remember exactly where these things happen, but we will get to it. So why don't we start from the beginning, because I haven't heard that one in a while. So let's start from the beginning. And then remember, we talked about how your melody should always come out, and not everything is important, right? So even though you have a lot of notes in your right hand, those might not be the most important notes that you're playing.
Yeah.
Okay. While we're stopped, that crescendo at measure 13, you have to start it softer, because we're playing a lot of notes, so it sounds more, right, to start with. Like, it's hard to play soft when we're playing that many notes. So the intensity kind of builds up before that. So when you get to the crescendo, you have to kind of dial it back down a notch and go back to soft, so that you can actually get to like, we can hear a crescendo without it becoming too aggressive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you start from measure 9, if you look at your melody, dee da dee dum bum, D E F F G A, like, the notes are going up, so of course the intensity is going to go up a little bit. So when the notes are coming back down in measure 12, where you have, what is that, G F E, that's what you're going to use to kind of come back down before your crescendo.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So why don't we start from measure 9? And I don't want to tell you to go slower, because I don't think that's the issue, but just relax more. If you make a wrong note, it's no big deal. Everyone's still alive. So relax more into it and kind of just enjoy what you're playing a little bit more. All right, good. Let's stop right here. So that was much better. Be really careful, because the moment our right hand starts to do different things, like at 12 and 13, you start to lose your sense of left hand, if that makes sense. So you know how we were focusing on those ascending notes of the melody in the left hand before that? When you get to measure 13, you start shifting your focus to what your right hand is doing because the notes are different. And so we're losing some of that left hand. Now, that left hand doesn't really have that same melody when you get to that part, but the one that I feel is important is when you get to measure 14 and you have that in your left hand, C, B natural, A.
Uh-huh.
That one comes back often, and I think it's an important one. Like, it comes back also in measure 18. Like, not all the other left-hand patterns of these measures have the same kind of obvious melody that we've been hearing from the beginning, but I do think that C, B flat, A adds a little something interesting. So I would want to hear that more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was tripped up because I didn't realize it was in trouble. It's like, what are you talking about? But
well, you've been playing with the right notes the whole time, so okay, so yeah, so why don't you circle those notes at measure 14, and then they come back also at measure 18.
See?
And they're also important in the sense that you have that B natural, right? You're in the key of D minor, so we should have a B flat, but then all of a sudden we have that B natural. So the harmony kind of changes a little bit in that sense, right? We're kind of modifying the colors that we're using. So I feel like that B natural should really come out. So that C, B natural, A should really come out a little bit more in the left hand.
Yeah.
And when you get to measure 20, come back down because measure 21 is mezzo piano, as opposed to you were supposed to do mezzo forte up to forte-ish right before that. So I would use that FEC, the little like descending thing at the very end of measure 21 to kind of come back down.
Yeah, something else I've been trying to do, but it's really hard for me, is to just accent the last 16th note of a beat into the first 16th note of the second beat in the right hand. Because I feel like the bottom two right hand notes don't really matter.
Yes. I mean, the way that they wrote it, that's a delicate thing because the way that this sheet music is written, yes, you see how the stem goes up on that first 16th and that last 16th as opposed to the other one. So it's kind of indicating to you that you have two voices. Essentially, you know, when you're looking at choir music, like you'll have there's different voices, right? You have soprano, alto, tenor, bass. And then sometimes they'll share a staff, like the alto and the soprano will be together on the treble staff, and the bass and the tenor will be together on the bottom staff. So we're using the directions of the stems to kind of indicate which part belongs to who. And so if you look at your measure 20, for example, well, any measure before that, really, some of the notes have the stems going up while some of the notes have the stems going down, right? So the stems going up could represent your higher voice, your soprano, while the stems going down could represent your alto voice. And traditionally, that's not always true, but traditionally the soprano voice has the melody or has the important notes, right? So you want to hear that more. So yes, we should be hearing da 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 instead of da 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 da. But I'm still not fully convinced that that's the melody. You know what I mean? I feel like the left hand of this has a lot more interesting stuff going on than all the right hand parts so far. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with you. It's just something I've been trying to do.
Absolutely. Try to accent it a little bit more, but don't get too hung up on that either way because it's a 16th note. It's a short note. And if you accent it, then it's going to become sluggish. So you want it to come out a little bit more, sure, but don't overthink it. Don't overemphasize it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would, instead of emphasizing that last 16, I would quiet down the middle ones.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
And yeah, I do lose the sense of my left hand. It's just like I'm focusing so much on my right hand, which even though I've played this like a million times now, if I don't play it for a day, it still is hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an easy piece, and it's so repetitive that it's easy to kind of lose focus and get lost into where you're at or, you know, whatever. So try to be a little bit more confident in it too. Like you've practiced it for a really long time and you've practiced it a lot. So even if you don't pay attention to your right hand for like 2 seconds, I'm pretty sure things are still going to go over well. You know what I mean? Like, be a little bit more sure of your abilities with this.
Okay.
So, now that all this is figured out, why don't we go back to 9? And I want to hear more movement. Like, try to focus less on whether the notes are right or not, and focus more on how does it sound. Because that's what we were talking about last time, is trying to make it a little bit more musical, right? Not just play the notes that are on the paper, but actually making it pop a little bit more. So try to see, is the harmony moving in a way where it's building intensity, or is it coming back down? We kind of decided that our phrases were grouped in groups last time, and where are they starting, where is it ending? So really think about that so that it can move a little bit more. Because if that's the final-ish speed that we're going to be doing this at, right now it's sounding kind of stagnant. It's good, you have the right notes, everything is fine, but we wanted more than fine, right?
Yeah.
So let's go again from 9, and just listen to yourself while you're playing, which is a really hard thing to do, but forget that you're playing and just listen.
Okay.
Good. You could even slow down a tiny, 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 tiny little bit at the end of 20.
Yeah.
So you could, like, not a full retardando, like not a whole dramatic end of section thing, but just a hair, just to say, okay, this is about to be something new. Like, I'm coming back down, and here we go again, kind of thing. So just like the last beat or so, just a little tiny like pullback. Can we try that from 17?
Ooh, okay.
Is that weird?
It's weird for me.
Would 19 be better?
Like, starting in this section, I usually start from 13.
Okay, so yeah, so why don't we start from 13 then? I see your point.
Oops.
Keep going. Oh, don't stop. Sorry. Yeah,
Oh.
that was good.
Okay.
You did starting at 17 anyways, though, because you kind of messed up at the end of 16 a little bit, and then you kind of had to restart at 17.
Yeah.
All that to say, we could have avoided that. But yes, so your retardando, make sure you're just not hiccuping into beat 1 of 21, though. Like, yes, you're pulling back a little bit, but I feel like you rushed to get back into beat 1. So just make sure that the distance, this is going to sound very scientific, but make sure that the distance between the last note of 20 and the first note of 21 is proportional to the slowing down you're doing. You know what I mean?
Okay.
If that makes any sense. But otherwise it sounds ti da dum ba da di. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to hiccup back into beat 1. But good. Okay, so why don't we start directly from 21 so we can move on from there? And start. I know it says mezzo piano, but you could really go down to piano here. Let's stop here for a sec. So we've missed a few opportunities that we could have had to create a little bit more dynamic contrast. So at the end of measure 24, you have that little tiny crescendo, which you did, but then you kind of pulled back really quick. Like that octave in your left hand on the first beat of 25 was really powerful, and then it kind of died down. Like you kind of, like it's like you took it back. So
can I explain why I did that?
Yes, you can.
Because I used to play all of it loud, and then you said not to do that. And then I didn't like it all quiet either. So I started making the first beat or first note of 25, 26, 27, and 28 do that. Just like start off loud and then kind of pull back, but still build up with the rest of it.
Okay, so why don't we try? I see what you're trying to do. So instead, remember how we talked about holding notes longer instead of playing them louder to make emphasis?
Yeah.
So why don't we try that instead? So instead of hammering it louder, which right now is giving it too much of an aggressive sound, and we're too early in the piece, I think, to get that loud that quick. Like we're only on page 2 and we still have 4 pages to go. So instead of playing it louder, try to play it heavier, which is it's the same thing. But try to like almost kind of hold the note a little longer, like you know when they have the little line on top of it, the tenuto line. Like imagine it that. So you're kind of holding it just like its full value really well, and then you keep going instead of playing it louder. Because right now I feel like the contrast was too much between the note that you were playing louder and then the quiet.
Okay.
Like it was too like yes, you have a good idea and we're going in the right direction with this, and I love that you're trying to do something different. But I think that's subjective, that's just me, that the contrast was too much.
Okay. I'm also really biased for bass notes because I played cello in high school and I love bass notes. Yeah.
I didn't know you played cello in high school all these times. Yes, I mean I'm partial to bass notes too. I love the low notes on the keyboard and I think they're fantastic. And I tend to do the same thing and just play them, loud and proud. But you want to still be tasteful in the way you're approaching it. So let's just try my suggestion, and then if it doesn't work or you don't like it or whatever, we'll come up with a different idea. But let's just give it a shot and see if instead of playing it louder, we just give it emphasis with a little longer. Just a hair longer. Like don't stop on that note, but just kind of like you're reaching for the next note and it's a struggle almost. So okay. Let's try from 21. And then when you get to the tiny crescendo at the end of 24, maybe don't get so loud, you know what I mean? Like it's only a crescendo over 1 beat, so it shouldn't get like that crazy.
Okay. Oh, another thing I've noticed is that when I get to 21, it's like my timing just disappears and I can't figure out how to do it with my right hand. It's like it's so easy for me when the left hand is there, but when my right hand is by itself, I can't do it.
It's not only that your right hand is by itself, but that you're playing softer. And so now you have a lot more control in what you're doing. So that might be something that you can, like those 4 measures. Well, okay. Let me start by saying that your right hand has a beautiful counter melody. When you get to 23 and 20, I mean, it's not really like counter melody, but it's like this lovely middle voice in measure 23. And you did a great job of bringing it out, actually. So that was really nice. So now at 21, think of 21 and 22 as an introduction to that line that's about to happen. You know what I mean? There's nothing going on there. It's just kind of, and there doesn't have to be anything going on. You know what I mean? Like, just think of those two measures as the calm before the storm. So there's just nothing going on, and all you need is to maintain those 16th notes without accenting any of them, just kind of, muddy almost.
Mm-hmm.
So let's try from 21 and see what happens. Okay, good. I still think we can fluctuate more.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, so again, I think you went too loud at 25. And you didn't even play that octave louder. You pulled back on the first beat. So you crescendo, your 4 notes that crescendoed in your right hand kind of really exploded, and then it like pulled back right away. So that's the one thing that I don't really like, because to me it just sounds like it's lacking control. Like you're trying to do something, but you're not too sure how to get to it. And so I wouldn't crescendo that much. I really wouldn't crescendo that much, and I would keep it quite tame. And I think the one bass note that should be accented is when you get to 29 and you have that low G on beat 1, because that's the lowest note of that section. Not the first beat of 29, the first note, the G, and then you're going all the way up to D.
Well, not the F on 27.
It is lower, yes. But to me, it doesn't have the same, like, I'm not hearing it the same way. Like that G, I'm like expecting it, I'm like waiting for it. And every time you're playing it exactly in time, and I feel like I want to hear that G for longer.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
I want it more dramatic. Don't know why, but I just do. I think it's because it's the first note of like the second part of the phrase-ish. So don't crescendo too much. I want to move on and do something else. So what I would say is don't crescendo too much at 24. And then if you're going to emphasize your bass notes, it can't be all bass notes. You have to kind of pick the ones that are a little bit more important. So, and that's subjective. Like, I'm making these decisions based on what I'm hearing. So if you have things that you want to do as well, like circle it, put a note in your sheet music so that you can always do it the same way, and that we can actually come up with, an interpretation of this. So keep working on that beginning part, and then you're still plowing through the notes at the end, right?
Yeah, I'm just unhappy with it. Like, I can't, it just sounds like notes to me.
Because right now that's all it is.
But I can't even like see where it's going. It just, I don't know how to phrase it at all.
Remember when we were learning that part at 13 or something?
Yeah.
It for a long time it was just notes and you had no idea where it was going, right?
Well, like, I've listened to the recording a lot, so I kind of had an idea. But with the recording, like after 59, I don't really like the way he plays it. It just sounds like notes to me, so I don't know what it's supposed to sound like.
Okay, so it could be maybe that's just what the composition is. So we have to take that into consideration, right? Because I make that mistake often, where I'm like, I want this to sound better, but it's just I don't have the material for it to sound better. That's just what the music is, you know. So we have to take that into consideration. But also, you're still plowing through the. Well, last I heard, we haven't played that part in a while. You were still trying to figure out what the notes were, really. So we're going. If you're still going as slow as you were, then we're still we're not really hearing the music in it. We're just trying to figure out what the skeleton of the piece is, right? So how far are you? Like, what's the earliest measure that you have in that time?
I'm at 69.
No, you were way before. Oh, yeah, sorry. Okay, I was like a page ahead. 69. Okay, so next week, for sure, we will play that. So stay at 69. Don't try to add any more than that. And we'll look at what this is. You have to take into consideration also that we're starting that in the middle of the piece, so we're missing a chunk of information. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just make it, like, force yourself to sit there for like 10 minutes every day and just go through the notes at least once. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's what I was doing.
Good.
It's just like, I hate it.
It's a lot of notes. It's a lot of notes. And I know, like, I'm playing a piece right now that I'm about to go record, and there's just so many notes, and sometimes I feel like I just don't even know where the music is going either, because there's so many notes, and it's like I can practice it for 2 hours today. Tomorrow, it's like I've never played those three measures, you know?
Yep.
It's really frustrating, and but I promise you that one day, you're gonna wake up and it's gonna click. You're gonna be like, oh, okay, I got it. But you have to let it. It's like food, right? You have to let it depend a bit longer.
Yeah, and like I said 2 weeks ago, like if I play the right hand by itself, I can see where it's going, but I just can't do it with the left hand.
That just means that it's a mechanics thing. You're not letting go just yet, because you're still, trying to make sure you're doing it correctly. So we're heading in the right direction. It's just taking a little bit longer to get there because there's so many notes to worry about. But trust me on this. Just keep practicing it. We'll get there.
Okay.
All right. Okay, let's go see. Did we have a one tiny classical piece?
We have that melody thing.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't super looked at it. I mean, I've tried. And then I have this new one called The Merry Farmer, which I haven't tried yet at all.
Okay, so why don't we keep that for next week then? So get into The Merry Farmer. Forget about melody.
Okay.
And look at the thing. Now, let's look at
the other melody.
Yeah, the other melody. Okay, so have you been able to look at that one a little bit?
Yeah, I've been like going over it every day. It's not too hard. I just need to I'm like reading it while I'm playing it, so I need it in front of me.
Which it's a normal thing, right? But yeah, so, and that's, you chose that piece, and I feel like you've been avoiding it ever since you kind of chose it. So yes, it's really not hard. You just got to kind of sit down and do it. So use that as like a palette cleanser from Dreamchaser. When you get sick of playing the notes and there's too many notes, just go to that simpler thing. Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right, so why don't we start from the beginning, and we'll see what we can do.
Okay. Whoops. Wow. Huh?
That part is a little bit easier because things are moving faster. So I still want to talk about that introduction though.
Okay.
The first note. This is hard. You have one single note on a pickup, and it's just one single note, right? And it sounds silly, but it's actually hard to do. So that first note should not be, it should be in time. You know what I mean? Right now, you're kind of stretching it a little longer than you should. So try to see it as a leaping point to the E. Don't think of it as being B, E, F, but think of it as being B, E, F. Like the B is leading you into the beginning. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So 1, 2, 3, fa, da, dee, da, instead of fa, da, you know what I mean? So the first note should not be accented, but it should also not be longer, emphasized, or anything like that. It's the first note, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's try just the right hand at the beginning. I just want to hear that like first measure, literally. I want it to sound da 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 dee da because the melody's going up, so we keep moving forward. So that first note is just your first step towards it. Okay, now don't cut it short though. Right now you went da da dee da da, so make sure it's still a quarter note. Da 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 dee da, whatever the notes are.
Did I do it again?
That's better. Excuse me, that's better already. So try to make sure you know what tempo you're about to play because yes, we're playing rubato, but not everything is going to be rubato. You know what I mean? We still need to have some kind of sense of what is happening. So it sounds super annoying, but I would work on just that first note and just trying to make
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, and then if we go to measure 9, remember how we talked about those first two chords and how they kind of belong to the end of the phrase before that and not really to the new phrase?
Yeah.
So right now, like everything is blending together in that measure. We kind of have no sense of where the phrase ends and when the phrase starts. And this is a weird sheet music in the sense that there's no phrasing indicated anywhere, right? So we kind of have to figure out where the phrase ends and when the phrase starts. So in your left hand, you have those 8th notes, dee da dee da dee da da dum ba dum ba dum. So put yourself a line between that B major chord and the G in measure 9. Like that's like it ends there, and then there's something else that starts. So we need a breath there.
Yeah, it's there. I don't really hear the gap.
Because you're not doing it. That's why.
I mean, I don't. I guess I'm not sure how to phrase it.
Okay, so let's try. Can we do measure 8 and 9?
What am I doing?
So
Okay.
the E and the C should be louder. Dee dum, ba da dum, dee dum. The first chord is kind of accented almost, and the other chord is just a release. So remember we talked about wrist movement a while back with the note that had the tension and then the release started going up?
Yeah.
You can't really do that on chords like that, but think about that concept. It's the same thing. And then after that, you keep going. So try again for measure 8. So you can wait, you can wait longer. It doesn't even have to be time. Da da dee da dee da dee dum ba da dum. So you can slow down those chords, wait longer, and then keep going. So don't think of it as being in the same measure or anything. You know what I mean? It's hard because of the way it's presented to us, but it's like two different things. Okay. So what I want you to do this week is to get more comfortable with it. You know the notes, you've played through it, now it has to sound a little bit more comfortable. You know what I mean? So just keep working at it, and then we'll next week we'll start with that, and we'll do the ending of Dreamchaser.
Okay.
All right. Do you have any questions on anything?
Oh, not today.
Not today. All right. So keep working on all of this. Even if the motivation is not always there, sometimes kind of force yourself to do it, because sometimes it kind of jumpstarts our motivation a little bit. And then, it's a work in progress. It takes time, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Thanks.
Very welcome. Keep practicing. I'll see you next week. Okay.
Yeah. See ya.
Bye.